Hello students and welcome to today's digital classroom. As you can see, we're outside again. You know what time it is. Show me the Mona Lisa. Sit up straight, mouth closed with a smile, eyes forward, hands folded in your lap just like the Mona Lisa. Now you're ready. And here is some magic from the magic paintbrush just for you. Did you get some? All right, let's talk art. Today's art lesson is going to be about paper loom weaving. All right, so we're gonna be weaving papers from around your house. Here's what you could use. You could use pages from old magazines. You could use any color of construction paper that you have, or any scrap paper. And if you want, you can even make art on some of your papers. You can paint or draw designs on them before you weave. Your papers will need to be dry before you start to weave them. All right, basic supplies. So you're gonna need 2 sheets of paper, roughly the same size. You're gonna need some scissors, and if you have it, a glue stick, maybe some tape. All right. Before we go any further, I would like to say thank you to my cameraman, James, on duty, and to let you know I don't have all this memorized. I'm reading a script, which is over here to the left. Let me check my notes. Okay, got our basic supplies. Let's talk about what we're gonna be creating. So our paper loom is actually going to be called the warp. First word of the day, the warp. That is the paper loom. And the strips that we're gonna weave through it, the paper strips, are called the wefts. 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 That's a funny word, kids. They're the paper strips. So two words here. We have the paper loom, the warp, and the wefts. Are you ready to start to weave? Okay, I have my 2 sheets of paper. Now, for this example, I am using 2 really big pieces of paper so that you all at home can see what I'm doing. Your papers at home do not have to be this big. Should probably be smaller so they're not so hard to work with. So I have 2 pieces that are roughly the same. One piece will be the warp, or the paper loom, and the other piece we will cut into strips, which will become the wefts. All right, so first, let's make our paper loom. I'm gonna use the yellow paper for that. And we're gonna begin by folding our loom in half. We're gonna bring the bottom to the top, line up our corners, and make a crease. Got it folded in half. And then we're gonna come to the top, right up here where we have our open edges, and we're gonna fold that down about a 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be exact, but we're gonna make a line across the top. Now this line that we're folding is gonna be our stop line, and you'll see what I mean, because we're gonna be cutting, and when we get to this line, we're gonna stop line. All right, so we've got our stop line, it's folded in half. We need to make some slits, some cuts, so that we'll be able to weave the strips through the loom. Now, you're gonna cut strips or slits all the way across the warp. Now your slits can be whatever space or width that you want them to be. I'm gonna do some pretty big ones so that you can see at home what's going on, but I'll show you an example later where my slits are cut pretty small and you'll see the difference. But for today's purpose, I'm gonna cut some big slits. Okay, so if it would help, you can even start in the middle and work your way out. So I'm gonna go right up here, I'm cutting, and what do I do when I get up here? I'm gonna stop, perfect. I got to my stop line, and that's where I know my scissors need to stop. And then I'm gonna come back. Now I'm gonna quickly cut some slits. Background music of the dogs for you all. All right. So this is what I'm gonna do just for the example. Now you could continue this. You could go back and actually cut each one of these again in half and then half again and continue to make those slits. All right, so we have our paper loom. When we unfold it, you'll see the vertical cuts are there, and this is our warp, all right? Now we need to cut our strips, which will be the wefts. So if you look, here's our pink paper for our strips. this time, we can see the lines run vertical, right? So we're gonna be cutting the strips to go horizontal. So we'll cut our pieces of paper to go short this way, all right? And I'm gonna cut some of those now. And you can cut your strips as wide as you want. And you may even wanna practice this at home before you get into some more advanced things. Try it big before you go small. All right, I'm gonna do 3 strips just for the practice and to get us started. Now, when we're weaving the strips through the loom, we're gonna use a pattern, and that pattern is an A-B pattern. That means we're gonna go over, under, A-B, A-B, over, under, over, under. And you'll see what I mean. So I'm gonna start at the bottom, and then this first strip you can see is gonna go over, under, over, under, until we reach the other side. All right, does everybody see that? Now my next strip, my pattern, this one was over, so I'm gonna go under this time, right? I'm gonna do the opposite of what the strip before it is doing. Does everybody see that? And you wanna keep your strips tight as you work. Now let's just say I didn't do it right. Let me make a mistake, because we all make mistakes. It's gonna be really easy to bring the strip back in and to slide it in that same way. But you can see when we go to keep it tight and we stack them together, it doesn't create the weave, right? So it has to be the opposite. So I'm gonna come opposite this time and then go here. Continuing our pattern, A, B, I have over, under. This time, this one's gonna go over to start and be the opposite of the one before it. And again, as you're working, you want to keep your strips nice and tight. Did everybody see that? Now you're gonna work this all the way up until your loom is full. And then if you need to at home, you can always go back and trim up any end pieces that are hanging over. And if you want it to be secure, you can even take a glue stick or a little piece of tape, and on each side, just secure those ends of the paper strips so that they're not loose, right? So this was just one really big example, but we have our paper loom, the warp, which is the yellow paper, and then we have the wefts, which are the paper strips, which are the pink paper. So here is our example of our paper weaving. And I'm gonna show you an example that I made earlier in the week. So for my example earlier, I was looking around the house and we had some popular science magazines. So I used that because it's what I had on hand. So I took 2 pages out of the magazine for my example. And I took photos before I cut them up and wove them together so you could see what they were. So the first page out of the magazine was of a scientist. You can see her there in the science lab, right? And then the second page that I used, and this was for the wefts or the strips, I cut this one into strips. This was a graphic of some iceberg data. All right, and then you can see when I did them, the scientist was the loom, and then the iceberg graphics became my strip. So here is the finished woven panel. Now you can see that I've cut my slits and my strips pretty small for this example. And if you look closely, you can even see the face of the scientist. Now you can tell I've secured my ends with glue, but what I love is there's a surprise even on the back. Even the images I didn't plan on, right, for the front are something really cool on the back. All right, so what could you do? So you could take this finished piece and mount it on another piece of paper, right? You could make a frame out of recycled items and frame your artwork. Or maybe for my more advanced artists, you could even make bunches of these panels, connect them together and make a quilt, right? Or James, the cameraman, even gave me an even better idea. What if you connected a bunch of these panels together that were woven, connected the panels together and treated this, right, treated the woven panels as fabric? And then what if you made a tote bag with braided paper strip handle, right? Take it to the max. So there's lots of things you can do. Or you could even collage this. You could cut shapes out of this. What if we cut this into the shape of a fish and we glued it on blue water, right, to collage it? So there's a million things you can do. After you finish weaving, it doesn't stop there, right? What else can you do? So that's today's lesson, paper loom weaving. I'm going to provide you with some links on our choice boards where you can, again, upload your work and view other people's work. Thank you for everything you're doing at home. I miss you. Be safe, make art, keep it school appropriate, be art smart. Until next time, students. Bye-bye. You thought I was done? Oh no, I've got some hot tips. Hot tip number 1. Now, this can be for all ages of students, but I think that our friends in pre-K through first grade are going to need some helping hands. Now, parents, we know you're busy, so this could even be an older sibling to help out with this. Remember safe scissors when you're using your scissors. And another hot tip that I wanted to mention is if you're using magazine pages that have photographs that you want to keep the photograph in order, right? The paper strips in order so that the image of the photograph is complete. One thing you can do is as you're cutting out that photograph, cutting those strips, number them so that you'll know as you're weaving, you'll weave them in numerical order and your image will be in the right in the right direction or in the right order when you weave it. So number your strips if you want a photograph and you want it to stay in order. The other hot tip that I had was that use lots of recycled things from around the house, right? This could be scrap paper from things that worksheets you've already done, maybe some newspapers that you have in the recycling bin. It could be literally anything. So keep your mind open, keep making art, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.